mystery writers. I'm Sarah Altair. This is Write a Killer Mystery, where we talk about making a good mystery great. And today I want to talk about wrestling that second draft. Many people are finishing up NaNoWriMo, and they have that first draft, and now it's all about smoothing out the bumps in that second draft and making it ready for readers. Okay, first I want to thank my patrons on Patreon who help support this series and my writing. And I'd love for you to join us. There's special perks just for Patreon supporters, and the link is in the description below. Okay, let's talk about improving your story with the second draft. What is it all about? Work on your second draft is all about smoothing out the bumps in that first draft. Your first draft drew on your creativity to create an intriguing story and bring those characters to life. The second draft examines your writing, fills in missing elements, and strives to improve your story and your writing craft. In the second draft, you bring in the heavy equipment to build a smooth road for your reader. That's what the second draft is all about. You are switching from creator mode to editor mode, and you examine that story for any dips or bumps because you want it smooth for your reader. And what those bumps are, anything that brings the reader up short, or essentially it takes them out of the story. They're like, why is this here? I don't understand. Or did I miss something? Do I have to go back? You don't want your reader to do any of those things. So you want your plot to make sense, your syntax to flow, and your character roles to fit in the story. So gear this editing process toward creating a smooth read. So how do you do this? How do you start the second draft of your manuscript? You want to start with a print copy of your manuscript and a pen, some kind of marker, because you're going to be going through and marking all those places where you want to make a change. Some writers use different colored pens for different types of edits that they want to do. I don't do that, but yeah, it helps some people. Also, I recommend going to your local Kinko's or something like that and binding all those pages together with some kind of spiral binding. It's usually pretty inexpensive. And that way your pages won't get knocked about if you drop them, or if you're like me, your kitty comes in and starts pawing the pages. Any of those things prevents any of that from happening. And the other thing is that as you hold it in your hand, it feels like a book, right? It's because you're going to be in reader mode for your second draft. Also, some authors put that manuscript away for several days to several weeks before they go into the edits, because it gives them distance, so when they come back in that reader mode, they've separated themselves from that creative process and bring fresh eyes as you read, not as a writer, but as a reader. Your goal in the second draft is to spot the places that will bring a reader up short or make them question your story. You're going to read through the entire manuscript, marking potential edits as you go. Okay, so you're all ready. You've got it printed out. You've got your pen set. So what do you look for in that second draft? If you've never done this before, Your second draft helps you decide what to rewrite and whether the story organization stands as it is or whether it needs some kind of amendment. So let me go through a few of the things you want to check as you're reading through your manuscript. First of all, when you were writing in that creative flow, you probably had some words and you marked them somehow with, I mark with triple X's. Everybody has their own little way of doing it. When you knew there was a word, but you couldn't find the right word while you were writing, and you put in a placeholder, now's the time to find the right word for those placeholders, all right? Also, as you're writing, you may realize that you need more research, but you're in the flow of writing and you're not going to go do that research right now. Now is the time to go and do the research that supports whatever is happening in that scene. You also want to look for plot holes where the story jumps without exposition and your reader may be confused. You may have to add some details, and maybe a scene or even a chapter to make the story flow for your reader. You may want to reorder scenes. You may feel that a scene that happens in one chapter maybe should appear a couple of chapters later. So you want to reorder your scenes. You may want to trim your character count. This can happen especially with beginning writers. You all of a sudden end up with a lot of minor characters. So you may want to combine a couple of characters into one character according to the role they serve in the story. One will work just as well as two, and you won't confuse your reader. This is the time to look for clunky sentences and think of ways to smooth out your syntax. You may want to rearrange paragraphs within a scene or a chapter. You may want to rearrange scenes within a chapter. You may want to reorder chapters. You may move a chapter from one place to another. This is where you're really thinking about how the story flows and what makes the most sense for your reader. You want to make sure that every subplot that you created is closed. So every subplot has a beginning, middle, and an end. And this is something that can happen. You set up a subplot, but then you don't close it out before the end of the story. The other thing is, in your subplots, you want to make sure that those subplots actually add to the main story rather than detracting from the story. And then, of course, we all have our shortcomings as writers. We have the words that we repeat over and over and over again as we're writing. So you want to check for those, your personal, whatever they are, words that you use over and over, and make those editing changes. Basically, what you want to do, what your goal is in the second draft, is to find places that need work to create and smooth the total reading experience for your reader. And that's why reading the story as a reader helps you find places that raise questions, and that's why so many writers put that manuscript aside for a while before they come to that second draft edit, because you're really trying to experience your story as a reader. All right. So as a reader, you want to look at what's not happening and at what you thought you were writing, but it didn't quite come out right. Those are the places that you need to fix. And also another thing that can happen as you're writing is you may come up with redundant information. That's something that you tell the reader, say in chapter 3, and then all of a sudden it appears again in chapter 7 or 15. You want to make sure that you find the right place for that information and put it in there once, and don't insult your readers by saying, I told you this before and now I'm telling you this again. Readers are pretty smart. They know when they've read something. All right. Another hint, as you start going through and looking for all these things, there's a lot to look at, isn't there? You want to suspend your judgment of your writing self. All right? All those words that you use repeatedly, any clunky sentences, the misplaced scenes, that doesn't mean you're a bad writer. So don't be beating yourself over the head. Part of being a good writer is doing these edits to figure out how to make the story work in a better way. It's all about what this series Write a Killer Mystery is about, is taking a good mystery and making it great. And the second draft is definitely a place where you do that, all right? You have a huge editing job as you read that first draft. So it's critical that your mindset is making the edits work. It's not about judging what you did before. It's about making the edits work. So be kind to yourself. And as you read your story, finding those weak points, don't judge yourself as a writer. Just think of it as making your story better, all right? The reason you're going through your manuscript is to improve the story. And if a sentence feels weak or a character takes up too much of your story, use your critical reader mind to note where you need to make an improvement. That's what you're doing in the second draft. It's finding all the places where you can improve the work that you've already done. You're building on what you've done before. No writer creates a perfect first draft. I'm going to say that again. No writer creates a perfect first draft. And the purpose of the second draft is to spot the places to improve your story. And what you're doing is you are improving the big picture. This edit focuses on the story balance, how the story flows, the character worlds and how they work. You want to make sure you're raising the stakes as your story progresses and heightening that story tension. And you want to make sure that each scene makes sense within the story. You want to make sure the subplots support the main story. You're looking at the way a reader responds to your novel. How do you feel when you're reading your story? All right. And then just a quick tip. You want to, at this point, don't spend too much time correcting grammar and punctuation and those things, because you're going to be editing and rewriting from all these things that you spot as you go through. So save all that grammar and punctuation stuff till you've already done all the rewriting work, all right? There's no point in fixing fine details of passages you may eliminate or rewrite. You'd just be giving yourself extra work. So if you catch a comma and you think it should be there, go ahead, fine, put it in. But don't get too picky about all that stuff right now. You're working on the big picture of your story. So there's essentially two phases to the second draft. This is a big job. So, it's part of the work of being a writer. So first, you find the weak spots in your story. That's the first phase of the second draft. You read through the whole thing. Any changes you want to make, you mark them and take notes to yourself as what you want to do. And then once you've identified all those weak spots, you're going to start making the changes. And the changes are the second part of the second draft. So yes, it's a lot of work. All right. The second phase is rewriting the sections you feel needed help, and that could be shortening descriptive passages, combining those minor characters into one character, adding story events to eliminate plot holes, emphasizing the main character's personality traits so your reader has a strong emotional connection to your character. So essentially, think of the second draft as a learning phase for you to improve your story. You want to complete the story so your reader won't be confused or frustrated. That's the whole reason for going through like this. And the changes you make aim for continuity, context, and flow. And in the end, you'll have a better story for your reader. All right, I hope that helps. And this is a really good way to approach what you've done in, for those of you who've done NaNoWriMo or at any time when you've finished your first draft. This is how you go in and give your story some kindness, I guess I should say. Okay, one thing I want to mention for today is the next to the last day for the special Writers Bundle, which is Writers Craft 3.0. And I'd like to mention that the course, Write a Killer Mystery, is part of this bundle. So you're going to get a really good deal on this. The Writers Craft 3.0 is $49 for over 60 different courses, handbooks, ebooks, and masterminds to help you write, edit, approach agents, tips on self-publishing. It's really quite an astounding bundle. So the link is in the description below. So I encourage you to check out Writers Craft 3.0 because it's going away tomorrow. All right, thank you. And in the meantime, keep writing.